Chapter 32, The Lower Depths. For many years, coal mining in the town had been extinct. So coal mining, right, if you Google image what is it, is digging out coal, black color rocks, okay? This coal can be used for energy. So this job of coal mining had become it had become extinct. That means it's not around anymore. Nobody does it anymore, okay? The mine itself had been boarded up, so it's been locked up. It stood there ugly and unloved in an ocean of its own slurry. To keep trespassers out, that means to keep people from entering without permission, a huge metal fence encircled the mine. The fence was topped with a crown of barbed wire. Can Google image what barbed wire is. Signs screaming, "Beware, keep out, danger," were everywhere, so nobody's supposed to go inside. Elfie knew where there was a little hole in the fence. So Elfie knew there was a little hole in the fence. The older kids at school would often talk about it. Strange as it might seem, the old deserted mine, that means the mine that is empty of people, held a fascination. That means it attracted many people for many of the local youngsters. So attracted this mine, right? This mine that has no one, it attracted the local youngsters. Youngsters are like teenagers, okay, around Shervin 姐姐 and Seth Kor age, okay. At the very least, it was somewhere for them to go of an evening to drink and smoke and snog away from the prying eyes of grown-ups. So this mine that has no one is a good place for all these youngsters to go in and smoke and drink, okay, so that their prying eyes, that means those grown-ups wouldn't look at them, wouldn't prying eyes, that means curious eyes. The grown-ups are always very curious of what the youngsters are doing, okay. The hole in the fence was child size. So the hole in the fence was very small, only fits a child, not big lady size. So Elfie thought it safest for Winnie to try and crawl through first. However, as soon as she tried to squeeze through, her clothes became caught on the metal edges of the wire. "Help me, boy, I'm stuck!" she squeaked. Elfie surveyed, and then she looked closely and examined the scene. The social worker did not look at her most dignified. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "Push!" she implored. Elfie took in her position. All he could now see of his social worker were her more than ample buttocks. So all Elfie could see was just her big buttocks, okay? "Where?" he asked innocently. So Elfie asked, Where do you want me to push?" "My booty!" That means my butt. Reluctantly, that means unwillingly, he placed his hands on Winnie's abundant butt. So Elfie placed his hands on Winnie's big butt. "Push!" she cried. Using all his weight, Elfie pushed the woman's bottom, his feet slipping and sliding on the wet mud just outside the wire fence. Nothing, so Winnie didn't even move at all. He took a deep breath and made another huge effort. It was a bit like pushing a car, but eventually Winnie passed through the hole. Unfortunately, that means unluckily, her clothes did not, so her clothes got stuck on the wire instead. The multicolored jacket, top and leggings remained hanging on the ends of the cut wire. It took a few moments for Winnie to realize she was now only in her underwear. "It's suddenly become rather chilly," she muttered to herself at first as she struggled to her feet. Finally, she looked down and saw that she was standing there in her bra and knickers. That means she's only wearing her bra and knickers now. The bra was quite the biggest, that means the bra was very big, Elfie had ever seen. It looked like it could comfortably hold 2 footballs. It was so big it could hold 2 footballs, and it was bright orange. Oh my gosh, what terrible bra. The knickers that might have doubled as a child's playpen were a shocking shade of pink. So orange bra and pink underwear. "Oh my!" Winnie cried. The poor lady looked dreadfully embarrassed. As fast as he could, Elfie untangled Winnie's clothes from the fence. To respect her modesty, he turned his head away as he passed the now torn garments are clothes, through the hole. "Oh, thank you, young Alfred," said Winnie as she snatched it from him. Alfie didn't turn his head back until all the grunting and groaning as she struggled to put the dress back on had stopped. The social worker gave a deep sigh of relief before telling Alfie, "Not a word of that to anyone, please. So don't tell anybody about what happened." "Of course not, Winnie," said Alfie, not sure he would quite be able to keep it secret forever. So Alfie don't even know whether he'll be able to keep it a secret because it's too funny already. "I wasn't wearing matching underwear today," she exclaimed. So Winnie's saying that, "I'm not wearing matching underwear because my underwear is pink, my bra's orange," she exclaimed. "Oh, the shame of it." From where they stood, the pair could just see how the now dispersing the disappearing trail of smoke ended exactly at the entrance to the mine. So probably the Tooth Witch, Miss Wood, brought gaps to the entrance of the mine. At the opening rested a huge metal cage, which itself housed a giant lift. In its long lost days as a working mine, the lift would have taken Alfie's dad and all the other miners deep underground. Hundreds of meters down in the dark tunnels, they would do their arduous, that means difficult and tiring work, okay? Once upon a time, coal was the country's main source of energy. So they need all this coal for energy. So for hours upon hours, the miners would work, dig and chisel and drill to bring chunks of the mineral to the surface. That was how Dad developed a terrible problem with his breathing. Over the years, all that dust from drilling the coal had become embedded, that means trapped in his lungs, and that's why Dad is so ill now, right? "The witch must have taken Gap straight down there," said Alfie as they raced across the rubble to the mine entrance. "My dad told me there is only one way down, in the lift. We have to go after them." Winnie held onto Alfie's hand to steady herself. It wasn't easy running on such loose ground and wedges. "Alfred, you're not going nowhere." "What?" answered Alfie. He hadn't come all the way for nothing. "An old deserted mine!" Winnie exclaimed. No, it's far too dangerous. And as your social worker, I have a duty of care." Alfie couldn't hide his frustration as they finally reached the huge metal cage that housed the lift. "But if we don't go after the Tooth Witch now, who knows what she will do to Gaps?" He traced his hand over the old controls that were caked in a decade of grime, searching for a button that might bring the lift up to the surface. "Come away from there, boy," shouted Winnie, "this instant." Like most kids being told not to do something, Alfie pretended not to hear. Eventually, he found a large green button which must call the lift. Jamming his finger onto it, he pressed and pressed again, but the lift didn't make a sound. The power must have been cut off when the mine closed all those years before. "See," said Winnie, "there is no way down. Now the best thing we can do is wait here while I call the police for help." She fumbled, that means she searched clumsily in her lime green. So her bra's orange, her bra's orange, her panties are pink, and her handbag is lime green. In her lime green handbag for a phone. "That PC plank is useless," said Alfie. "We need to rescue Gaps now." Using all his might, he slammed a jar, that means he opened a little bit of the huge rusty metal door that opened onto the lift shaft. He peered down into the blackness. For all he could see, it could go down for miles, so it's very deep underneath. Alfie picked up a small discarded piece of coal and dropped it. In his head, he counted how many seconds until he heard the tug of it hitting the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It must be hundreds of meters down. "Come away from the edge, boy," shouted Winnie, pulling him back sharply by his hand. Alfie shook her away and took several paces back from the shaft. So Alfie, cause Winnie put Alfie back sharply by his hand, right? So Alfie shook her away, so like go away. Then after that, but then Alfie also walked back himself. So Alfie took several paces back from the chef. So Winnie said, "Oh, thank goodness," said Winnie with a relief sign, because Winnie saw Alfie walking back from the lift. But little did she know that Alfie was actually taking a run up. So what's Alfie actually going to do? Alfie is taking a few steps backwards so that he can run forward, okay? As the social worker was busy tapping a number into a phone, Alfie ripped out the insides of his trousers pockets and put them over his hands to use as a makeshift glove. That is a temporary glove, okay? "It's ringing," announced Winnie as she held the phone to her ear. Just then, Alfie sprinted, that means he ran forward as fast as he could. He took a running jump at the thick metal lift cable, this is the cable, that was suspended from the top to the bottom of the shaft. It was greasier, that is very oily, than he had anticipated. Okay, so it was very oily, more than he expected. At first, Alfie panicked. He couldn't get a grip, so he couldn't hold on tight because it was too oily. He started sliding down it nearly as fast as he was falling. For a moment, he thought his short life might be over, okay? He might die. "Ah!" cried Alfie. "No!" cried Winnie. As swiftly as he could, Alfie wrapped his legs around the cable and squeezed tight. So he wrapped his legs around the cable and squeezed tight, okay? Thankfully, this slowed him to a stop. Using his hands, little by little, he lowered himself into the mine. "Come back!" yelled Winnie. Her voice echoed deep into the mine shaft. It was too late. Alfie had disappeared into the dark depths below.